And that's my favorite stretch of road to Wisconsin. Right there, cross the border, leave the fibs behind. I'm into God's country. I'm home.
Shut up and sit down. And sit down.
What's up, Wisconsin? From the Inside Wisconsin studios, my name is Trevor Thomas, and he is Green Bay Southwest track star and, oh yeah, ESPN Sports Center anchor John Anderson. John, how are you doing with Kenny Mayne and the breakup? I mean, I know you guys are close. That's not easy. It's not you, it's him.
Right.
How's this going?
The breakup. Listen, he's not just breaking up with me. He's breaking up with everybody at our place. He's breaking up with America. At least
I don't like it.
From our point, you know. Listen, it's really hard. I consider him a dear friend. He is. I think he is fall down funny. He is by far one of my favorite people on the network. I will turn on to watch Kenny. Such is the unique perspective, often demented, that he brings to SportsCenter, which is great. I get that he is not for everybody all the time, but you will not find a more decent human being anywhere. Whether he is trying to rescue dogs, whether he is trying to better the world by registering people to vote, why he is trying to get he runs this charity to get braces for veterans who have had injuries to their legs and have trouble walking, and it's called Run Freely, and all of a sudden they get this brace, and these guys that have not literally almost been wheelchair bound get up and not only walk but run on treadmills and can run, and he gives them their, just sort of their life back in so many ways. And so he is, like I said, he is a phenomenal guy. Everybody should be that original, everybody should be that caring. And we will miss him. And it's funny because he put out the tweet, "Hey, I'm going to be done." And it's like anything in life, right? When you leave it, I'm not so sure I want people to go, "Oh, well, he worked." But you would like to know that you were there and you made a difference. Yeah. And the outpouring he's had since that happened has been terrific, been really moving for all of us, really, that everybody thinks as highly of him as we do. And listen, there's no bigger friend to the Green Bay Packers,
I was going to say,
than Kenny Mayne.
Right.
TJ
Lane got jacked in the face by a rack of cabbage, but other than that,
had Aaron throw a cabbage point blank right at him, and Aaron sort of pumped it up, right? He didn't just kind of lob it. He did that.
No.
But Kenny is a guy that he's a Seattle guy, but Seattle didn't have a team till 76. So he's slightly older than I am. So he grew up in the heyday. So he grew up, got some tail end of the Packers, and he loves it. He loves Lambeau Field. And so he is, like I said, there's no better fan, no bigger proponent of the Packers at ESPN, maybe me. But beyond that, he is a great friend of the organization.
And you told me he is pissed at the Brewers, right?
At the Brewers?
Yeah, they stole the pilots, right?
Well, yeah, in that regard, yes. He's very much will let you know that in 1969, the Seattle Pilots were, a Major League Baseball team in his hometown, and then they were pilfered and taken away by Bud Selig and Edmund Fitzgerald Jr. I don't know if you knew that. Do you know that? Edmund Fitzgerald Jr. was his partner, not the guy the name the ship was after. That was his dad, but Edmund Fitzgerald. And so he is forever quoting pilot highlights or pilot statistics and all those things. And so he frowns on that, but to some degree he kind of keeps them in. And by the way, he was a great athlete. He at one time at UNLV, he was ahead of Randall Cunningham on the depth chart. Yeah, played junior college football, and then went to UNLV. And then Oregon broke his leg, which is for as often as that sound catastrophic, is a really funny story in terms of, having your legs broken. But
so you played track in high school, amongst other things. I played basketball and a little bit of football, not a lot. Our guest today, probably, I don't know, did he do any of those things or did he just drive cars? Matt Kenseth on Inside Wisconsin today.
Shut up and sit down.
Matt, thanks for joining us on Inside Wisconsin.
Yeah, no problem.
Cambridge native, NASCAR champion, huge Packer fan. What else you got going on?
Really just chasing kids. So my girls are 3, 7, 10, and 11. So they keep me pretty busy around here. Then, of course, Ross is 27. And just a couple weeks ago, he just had his second child. So just had a grandson here a couple weeks ago. And so between all the kids and keeps me pretty busy, honestly.
Race cars go fast. I find that my kids go faster, right? Like kids just, they are, they're harder to catch than anybody else I'm sure you ever had to run down on a track. Like they just go.
Everything's, slowed down the last few years as far as travel and going out and doing all that stuff. But kids move pretty fast. They have a lot going on, and they want a lot of your attention, which is great. Because someday I've learned, with Ross, he went through a period where he didn't want much to do with me. So I know as kids get older, there's going to be times where they don't want much to do with you and listen to you. So you try to, absorb every moment and try to enjoy it all. And try to, whenever they want to talk to you and do something with you, try to make time for them and do that. So it's pretty busy, especially for the one that's not in school, because she's wide open all day.
So Matt, you, like John, moved away quite a while ago. What do you miss the most about back home?
The weather.
No kidding. Didn't see that coming.
That's not the answer you're expecting. The easy answer is just the people. I think when you grow up somewhere, you get to know kind of the culture and the people and, just kind of everything that goes with that. So the people for sure are the most, but there's a lot of things I miss about up there. I still try to get back there a fair amount. I miss, there used to be a lot of snow and you go snowmobiling with your buddies or, just whatever it might be, just all the Wisconsin things, Packer games, and honestly the weather a little bit, kind of hunting with your buddies and kind of having 4 real seasons, except for the real wet, cruddy part of the winter. That part I don't like, but the rest of it I miss.
Right. Yeah. Trevor's dressed for winter right now. He's wearing flannel as we get into 80-degree weather, which is really nice. Did you were snowmobiles hobby and fun, or do you have to drive those things wide open too when you got on that?
Well, I will be honest, it was always a race. And I started off with a pretty slow snowmobile. My first snowmobile was an old Polaris Gemini. It was a little single cylinder 244 cc, and it was not very fast. But I went as fast as it would go all the time. And then my next one was just a little bit faster. I went as fast as I go all the time with that one until I hit a tree. And then, that slowed me down for a while, especially because at the moment I happened to be grounded and I wasn't supposed to be riding it. So I had to.
How old were you?
I was like 13, and I had to figure out how to fix it, and I didn't have any money, so I actually built the pieces and fixed it in the shop. And I thought my dad never knew about it, and that's the thing you learn about parents. As you get older, that they pretty much knew everything. He just didn't let me know for whatever reason that he knew about it, because once I was ungrounded, I went out to take it for a ride. And I didn't have any stickers to fix that one side. He's like, "How's there's those stickers on that side?" And he just stared at me, like daring me to lie to him. I was like, "Well, Dad, I had an accident. I had to fix it." "Well, when did you have that accident?" He knew exactly the whole thing, right? So, So then I didn't ride my snowmobile for a while again, and learned my lesson and went from there.
So we noticed that you list hobbies: running, cycling, skiing, riding snowmobiles and motorcycles. What do you do slow?
All of those things. Actually, I could say if you watched me race last year, I did that pretty slow.
No, come on.
I probably do everything maybe a little bit slower than I used to. So I really love skiing. We only go once a year. This year we didn't go just because of COVID and travel, and it was just hard. But Katie and I went to Colorado, I don't know, like 15 years ago for our anniversary, kind of on a whim. And neither one of us, we both grew up in Wisconsin, but neither one of us have ever skied. So we learned to ski in Telluride, Colorado. So we always try to go back there every year. So Jimmy got me into running. He was doing this little 5K charity thing. And man, I couldn't run a mile without stopping. So Katie, I always liked to run. So I started running with her, and it turned out to be like one of my favorite activities with her. It's like, it's just us. We talk the whole time. It's just, we just really both enjoy doing it. and spending that time. So we both trained just a little bit, and I ran that 5K when I wasn't going to race in 19. Katie has always wanted to go to Europe. She's been there a few times. I have never traveled anywhere really except to race. I've never been overseas at all. So we had a friend that was running a Berlin Marathon. So it's like a lottery draw. And Katie's like, let's sign up. And if we get drawn, we'll both train, do it together. And then, we'll stay over there for a week with some friends and we'll go tour some different things and do that. So that's kind of how I got into that. I really liked it. I set too lofty of a goal, and I knew I did a bunch of things wrong. I was not feeling well at all the day of the race in Berlin, and still did okay. And then I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, hey, I got a spot if you want to do New York in a couple of weeks. Once I got home from post-Berlin Marathon, which consisted of a lot of walking up and down stairs in castles and a lot of drinking beer and a lot of eating and all that kind of stuff for a week without doing anything. So I came back and tried to do a quick tune-up for a few weeks and ran New York, which was a great experience as far as how my stomach felt. Like I fixed all that stuff. I figured out my eating, my sleeping, and all that. It's just my legs were really unimpressed with what I was trying to do. But it was really fun. I can't wait. I signed up for Chicago this year. I'm actually just
good.
Thinking about getting a training plan put together here to probably start the end of June or middle of June, somewhere in there, and start getting ready for that. So I'm really hoping it goes off and go try another one.
Truly amazing stuff. But people as much as they are interested in your road running, they're probably a little more intrigued by the racing. Let's start with let's get to the end and kind of work back, because take us through the end, the full-time end of NASCAR, because it really didn't seem to be more of an ability thing. It wasn't a talent thing. It becomes a money and sponsorship thing. And, how it was that you decided that maybe now that part of your career was over.
Which end are you talking about?
At the end of when you decided to give up NASCAR.
Who said I gave up yet? I'm just
Yahtzee.
Full time.
No, we broke
qualifiers.
We broke that news here.
We
broke that news here. You're done?
Yeah, no, I am definitely done. So, there's all joking aside, there's a few different, kind of endings, I guess. So 2017, I would say that I was mentally exhausted. I honestly knew since probably July of 16 that Gibbs wasn't going to keep me around, that they were going to replace me and sign me to a 1-year deal. And I just kind of knew that's the writing was on the wall, and I kind of knew that was going to happen no matter how many races we won or what we did for whatever reason. So I'd say I was pretty mentally exhausted by the time 2017 was over. Nothing really popped up that made me super excited. I could have kept racing, but I felt like pretty much at that time with what was available or wanted me there was going to be a step down from what I was doing. And I feel like throughout my career, I've had some pride in being fairly competitive. Throughout my career, I didn't want to take a ride to not be competitive and not have a chance to win, just to be, collecting a check or just to be out there. So I was pretty mentally exhausted, kind of ready for a break. However, in my heart, I wasn't really done racing. I felt like I still had the ability to do it. We won the second to last race, of the year in 2017. I felt like I could still be a asset, and I could still perform well around the right people and all that kind of stuff. So, fast forward a little bit to like April of 18, and Jack called and wanted me to drive the 6-car part-time and see if they could get that going a little bit better. It was a good experience. It didn't run as well as I hoped we'd be able to run. I felt like we made some things better. Some things certainly I feel like I wish I could have helped more. But really, once we got toward the end of the season, I could, it was kind of a grind and 3 days a week. And as the kids got older and missing, soccer games and basketball games and school plays and father-daughter dances and all that stuff was just honestly something I wasn't interested in missing anymore. And I just, so I decided it's just time to get out. Took 2019 off and fast forward again. And really it's because, COVID hit. And then when Kyle got out of that car, Chip called me to drive the 42 car. I felt like it was a good team. Kyle always ran really well in that car. And to be honest, I was kind of itching to get back behind the wheel a little bit. Anyway, we were stuck at home. They were all one-day shows. I was like, man, if there's ever an opportunity to go back one more time, to kind of be like, can you still do it or can't you? And, is this something you want to keep doing? Are you done for good? Are you happy? Like all that kind of stuff. It was just a perfect opportunity. Like I said, there were one-day shows. I felt like it's a good team. Wasn't going to be away from home much. Kids weren't doing anything anyway because they were locked down with COVID. So, went back and tried that last year, and really disappointing. Certainly when I got done with the season, I knew that was kind of my sign that it was time to step away for good and stay away.
Does it make it easier because the resume's full? Got a bunch of wins. There's a championship. There's Daytona 500. There's not a ton of stuff out there that you didn't accomplish that anybody that got into the sport and raced at the top level would want to do. As
much as you think about the races you won, I think about the however many 600 and some that I lost or whatever. So, certainly I feel really, really blessed and fortunate, mainly for the people I was able to work with, how good of cars I was being able to be in. I mean, without being in good equipment and having good people working on those cars, you're not going to be successful. So I was real fortunate, had a lot of success, more than I would have ever dreamed of in a million years. Never dreamed I'd even make it to this level, much less have the success that I was able to have with the different teams that I was with. So super, super thankful for all that. But you always want more. I always, at times think back to the ones that got away, that slipped away, the things that should have done different, should have done better. I always wish you had some of them back, but I think that's probably normal for any athlete. They're like, man, I wish I could have that back or this back.
Your job was sort of right in line when the Packers were doing their job. So how did you manage to either watch games, or I don't know if you wanted to not find out, don't anybody tell me what happened so I can go watch it? How did you handle that?
Yeah. So for years and years, that was always kind of my release. So that's sort of what I look forward to. And when I got home on Sundays, typically couldn't sleep. So what I would do is I would DVR the Packer games, and everyone on my team and the people that I had direct contact with knew that I did this and knew that I did not want to know the results, so they wouldn't tell me. And it worked really good for a long, long time. Once in a while, somebody'd slip and say something, but typically nobody would say a word. And so I wouldn't look at my phone. I wouldn't look at any football scores, wouldn't look at anything. And we go home, we get the kids to bed. I'd go get a cold beer, and I go sit out on the porch, and I'd turn the TV on, and I'd watch it like it's live. And I did that pretty much every week. It hardly ever I found out what the results were. And I always look forward to that. I was up really late, and Monday mornings weren't really that good after having a long day of racing and being up late watching a Packer game. But I always really enjoyed that. That was one of the things I look forward to the whole weekend. And Katie always laughs because she said that one of the times she's seen me the maddest is we came home after a race and I had a really bad day, and I went to watch the Packer game on DVR, and the satellite was all blurred out. And I went outside, and there were some branches that were in front of the satellite dish, and I was out there at like 10:30 at night with a chainsaw, cutting all these branches out of there, throwing them off. So she thought that was pretty funny. I had a bad day anyway, and then that made it worse.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, more with Packers fan and, of course, NASCAR champion and Cambridge, Wisconsin native Matt Kenseth. In just a bit, we are inside Wisconsin.
Helpful critiques, ideas, great stories, people we should know, the great bar in your town, the fish fry you want to know, the fish boil, anything that you want to reach out to us with. We are happy. We are here. You can be the inputters. We're here to listen.
Shut up and sit down.
Welcome back to Inside Wisconsin. John Anderson, Trevor Thomas. As always, I am representing some franchise within the state. Go Bucks as the playoffs begin, and Trevor is in flannel. For the love of Pete.
For representing the rest of the state. Let's be honest.
It's June. You don't need flannel in June.
It's a little warm down here, not gonna lie.
Okay, we'll take care of it. All right, so we've got Matt Kenseth. Before we get back to him and his racing stories, you say there are stretches of road where you like to just go ahead and floor it, or you're either that or you're driving at a reasonable rate and you find people flying by, right?
Yeah,
so give me some spots. Give me 5 where I need to watch the speedometer or at least be keeping track in my mirrors.
So this week's top 5 list, we talked about where in Wisconsin do you feel like you're on a racetrack no matter what's happening. So
right,
coming in at number 5 for me, Milwaukee, the Marquette interchange. John, you've been on that before. Literally, if you're going to a Brewer game from the north or coming up from the south, anywhere downtown in that Marquette interchange area, I don't know, Brown Deer South, I think it goes down to 55. But nobody does that down there. It feels like a racetrack every single time.
Nobody's observing that. Okay.
No. Well, every once in a while you see a cop that found somebody, but that's pretty rare. Anyway, number 4, I'm certain that you've made this trek before. I-41 between Green Bay and Appleton between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. It is a 2-lane absolute Bristol racetrack. It's ridiculous.
I will say this about the stretch of road there in Milwaukee. All I know is that when I left for college and I drive down from Green Bay to Missouri, there was construction in and around Milwaukee and the Marquette campus. And the last time I was home, a few months ago, and I drove through, and there's still construction there. So near as I can tell,
always.
Right? It's been 36 years of nonstop construction in and around that place.
Great. Number 3, the Beltline in Madison.
Okay.
On the outskirts of Madison, on the south side, the Beltline, where everybody takes to get to a Badger game. You get off on Park. It is absolutely nuts racetrack driving, which is not far from Cambridge, by the way, which I guess makes sense.
When you say racetrack driving, what are you saying? Are we getting to 80?
We're probably getting to 80 on the Beltline.
If I don't see an 8, then we're just keeping pace.
But I think more about the aggression. It is, these guys, when they race in NASCAR, they're not like, hey, how are you? Good. Yep. They're not waving at each other. It is to the grindstone every single time. That's the Beltline. Last 2, and I know you've done at least one of these, probably can understand the other one as well. From Green Bay to Door County on a Friday afternoon on 42 and 57. Right. It's stupid. You have to leave early, otherwise buckle in like doubly, because it's literally race car driving all the way up to Door County. Why, you may ask? Because of number 1, anytime you're on the highway, the interstate, a road here in Wisconsin, and you are met with somebody from Illinois, game on.
You see the license plate Land of Lincoln, and that's when you're going after it.
Game over. Yeah, you have to. You will get run off the road in your home state. It's fibs, man. Fibs. Speaking of things that aren't great, roundabouts. Do you have those out there?
Yeah, we got a couple. Mm-hmm.
Do people know what they're doing?
They baffle everybody.
Everybody.
I get it. Nobody knows when they're yielding. Nobody knows the right way. By the way, they're not really that difficult.
Not at all. It's fairly simple. Watch the signs. Slow down. I left the house today.
Get off where you need to.
Yeah, not difficult.
Done.
Go in a circle, not all the way around. You ever see people do that? That's stupid too. I approached a roundabout today, and in front of me was somebody from Missouri. No offense. And coming on the side was somebody from Minnesota. You would have thought there was an elephant in the middle of the roundabout. Nobody knew what to do at that moment. Literally, the guy in the roundabout stopped. Right. I want to ask Matt Kenseth this, by the way, when we joined him. Metallica. Matt's a big fan of Metallica. And on my little road trip today, I put the earbuds in and put on Pandora for Metallica. It changes things when you're driving. I'm curious if he listens. Yeah, let's ask him.
Yeah, see, I'm not a metal guy, but we'll find out.
Shut up and sit down.
Matt, as you were racing, did you have Metallica in one ear, pretty much the constant, and your crew in the other ear? Or how was that? Because I got on 41 today up here in the Green Bay area, and I put in my AirPods and hit Metallica on Pandora. And I got to be honest, I drove different. It was just different.
Ironically, once we had the kids, it's whatever they were watching in the morning in the motorhome or listening to is what would get stuck in my head, unfortunately. So I had a lot of Dora the Explorer and just random stuff stuck in my head sometimes when you're driving, unfortunately. But you're right. Some of that stuff, I used to never listen to music when I ran. And then on some of my training runs, I started listening to music, and Five Finger Death Punch, for instance, is worth about 25 seconds a mile. I don't know how it's sustainable, but it's worth that without feeling like it's any more effort. I'm like,
wow. Drove different. Gotta be honest.
Yeah.
Is there a spot in the state somewhere where you find that you need to use most of your professional driving skills?
No, I mean the driving too fast. I don't really run into that. I like it when nobody's holding me up on a 4-lane or whatever. But yeah, there is some places where people pay no attention to the speed limit at all, for sure.
So for you, we should define what's too fast. I don't know. Is that a thing?
Well, I mean, I don't really speed much, to be honest with you. However, when we're going down an interstate or something like that, I usually judge off other cars. I love it when somebody's going too fast, because I'll get behind them and I'll let them go 1 mile an hour faster than I am. So then I figure, well, if they get a ticket, if somebody gets a ticket, he's going to get it. He's going a mile an hour faster than me. So I actually like when people are going fast like that. I don't like to be the fastest one.
Matt, let's go back to the small track days, right, where it all began. We did some research, and I literally couldn't find a small track that you didn't race on back in the day. Did you ever race at Jefferson Speedway other than all the others? I mean, tell us about the beginning.
Yeah, so I guess if you want to go way back, my dad's three brothers raced at Jefferson Speedway. That was the closest track to our house. And we used to stop over their house. My dad didn't race at the time, and we used to stop over at their house all the time. And I just loved race cars from a young age. We'd go over there and I always ask my dad, after work if we could drive over to either Uncle Gary or Butch's house, because they were in Cambridge. Wayne was in Janesville, which was farther away. So we'd go over to one of their house, and just because we knew they'd be out in the garage working on their race cars, and I was like going over there and watching that. And then Saturday nights we'd sit up on the hill at Jefferson with my grandparents, and my aunts would be up there watching my uncle's race, and my cousins would be up there and stuff. So just kind of started doing that and hanging out, and just that's kind of where it all started. And then one year after the championship race, we were driving home, and my dad did a U-turn and went back to the track. I kind of asked him what he was doing. He said he was going to go back and buy a race car. And my dad was real funny. He's like, I'm going to buy it there. I'm going to have him drop it off at the house because I don't trust him not to take good parts off or change the setup or whatever he thought they were going to do. So anyway, he went and bought a car right out of the pits after the last race, and the guy dropped it off at our shop. And we didn't have any tools. Neither one of us knew how to work on anything. We didn't have a trailer. We didn't have anything. And I was 12 or 13 at the time. And really, that's where it all started. We went to local farm fleet and bought a jack and some jack stands and a toolbox, and started buying some tools here and there. And I pretty much did all the work on the car, and my dad drove it for the first few years until I turned 16. Then I got a car, and we both raced at the same time for a little while. But that's kind of where it all started, was Jefferson Speedway. Actually, when I started racing at Columbus Speedway, which isn't there anymore. And because that was a Friday night, then my dad would race Saturday nights at Jefferson, so I could work on his car.
Wow, it's fun.
I remember as a kid, they had like the Pabst Red, White, and Blue series. They went to like Seymour. I remember going to that, Kaukauna, places like that. Yeah. What is it about those tracks that, because once you've been at the highest level, right, and you go to Daytona, and there's a whole week there, and you talk about travel, and there's haulers and shops and sponsor commitments, right? Like you're at the high end of the food chain. And I worked in Tulsa for many years, and you'd get many of these top drivers because they just want to come and race the Chili Bowl Nationals. And they'd go, it's just cool to be on this short track with the dirt, and we're just having the time of our life. What is it about those places is it just straight nostalgia? But what does it draw guys back to that even if you've won the Daytona 500, there's something just a hoot about going back and racing in those kind of places?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of about how you started. Typically what your dad brought you to as a kid is the kind of racing that you end up doing, or that you enjoy the most, or whatever. My dad and my uncles and stuff are all around late model asphalt racing, so that's kind of where I started as well. So for me, when I watched the big races before I was driving, like the Slinger Nationals, and you'd always see NASCAR drivers come there and race at the Slinger Nationals. I mean, that was like the coolest thing ever. You go sit in the stands, and I've seen so many great drivers. I was there, I think, that night that Neil Bonnet had that big crash, and like I've seen Bobby and Davey Allison, and obviously Schrader and Kwiecki, and like Michael Waltrip, just all kinds of guys I've seen race there. Trickle, obviously, a million times. So watching that, and then along with all the short track legends like Joe Shear and Rich Bickle and all the guys that were doing so well up there, to me, that was always like the coolest thing ever, watching that. So as soon as I was able to start racing and moved up to super lates, I always look forward to one of the Slinger Nationals. That just seemed like it was the biggest short track race in Wisconsin, and really awesome racetrack, but just the whole event and the atmosphere and all the people that would come there for it, and all the people that have heard of it. I mean, that was always for sure my local short track race, or favorite short track race rather.
Matt, where was your first win here in Wisconsin? What track was it, and how old were you when you got your first victory?
It was at Columbus 151 Speedway, and I think it was my third night racing. We won the feature up there. So I was 16, and I say this almost every interview, and I still don't know where it is. It's pretty funny. I forget when I get off this, but for like the last 10 years, whenever I talk about my first win, I always talk about the tape of it because my dad had this old camera. It was this big old VHS camera, holding it up on his shoulder. And he filmed the race. And it's really, really neat because he's so excited that the camera jumps up to the sky and back down. And he's laughing and giggling and saying, "Oh, the kid is better than I am." And he's so excited, like just so excited. It's like the neatest thing. And I need to hunt that tape down, actually. So it was at Columbus 151 Speedway. And it was like my third night out there. And I was able to hold off Dave Phillips and Pete Moore, who were the two best guys around that track at the time. So it was their late model division. It was kind of like a late model stock or sportsman type car, but it was the late model division out there at like Columbus, Jefferson type late models.
When do you get the feel that if you're a football player, right, and you start running for 3,000 yards, like, oh, maybe I can do this in college, or since I'm a runner, if you see some guy and you go, oh, look, he just laid down in high school a 420 mile, you think I might have a future in this. When do you realize as a racer that you might have some ability and some opportunity, and this can be a career, as opposed to those guys that what's 80% of them that you raced when you first started out that just like to have a car and like to race and go there on weekends, but it goes from a hobby and you've made a career out of it?
Yeah, I mean that's not a simple answer. That's kind of a tricky question. I've never really had. It's gonna sound a little dumb, but I've never really had that feeling like I'm good enough. Like, like, hey, I'm better than that guy. I'm going to make it at this. Like, I think a lot of it is circumstance. I think a lot of it's certainly, dedication and I hate to ever call racing work, but I think dedication and hard work and being dedicated to try to do the best you can do or best you can be at something. But a lot of it is just great timing and good fortune, meeting the right people. The Risers giving me a chance to drive their car. Mark Martin seeing me race and getting Robbie and I hooked up to Roush Racing to move up, like without any of those kind of things happening or driving the short track cars Dad and I couldn't afford, for like Mike Butts and Fred Nielsen and those kind of guys. Without getting those cars and running well, you would never have got the experience or the recognition or the next people seeing you drive that thought you were good at it to give you a chance to move up. So ironically, at least the first several years when I raced, I always liked working on race cars better, and I liked driving them. I mean, the driving was fine, but I really enjoyed working on them and trying to figure out how to make them faster than everybody else's cars. Like I loved working on my dad's car and even my own car. Like I couldn't wait to go home and try to build a new set of shocks and see if it would make my car turn better than other set of shocks. And so I think very early on I figured out that the fastest car has a way better chance of winning a race than the best driver. And I really focused on that pretty much my whole career. The last handful of years has been much harder because it's so engineered based and I can't keep up with it. And I'm not smart enough to tell them, what to put in the cars or what I need in the cars. But I think, at a young age, I learned that and I enjoyed that and I embraced that. And I think I took that through a lot of my career. And I think that was a huge advantage for me because like, in practice, we work hard on making changes and getting that last run in and that last run of test just to try to keep making the car better. Because when you get to that level, everybody's a good driver. Mm-hmm. I really don't think I'm nearly as talented as a lot of the drivers that I raced against for years and years, but I feel like we made our cars better than a lot of those guys. And the faster car would beat a more talented driver more times than not. So I feel like that was probably one of my biggest, one of my best attributes, one of the things that helped me, I think, the most through my career. My driving talent wouldn't have took me there. If I would have never been good at trying to get my cars to go faster, the talent would have never took me there because we did a lot of that ourselves, and I really enjoyed doing that.
Well, I think you're really self-deprecating in that regard. I think there's plenty of talent there, but along that point, whether it's engineers or mechanics, right, in NASCAR, the goal is always to go faster. And so there are times in that chase for speed that all rules are not observed to the letter. But it is one of my favorite sayings I've ever heard in all of sports. When a guy said, it's not that we're cheating, we're just trying to get away with stuff. Given that you like to get in there and work on it, like, do you find that you wish they'd kind of take some of those shackles off and just go, listen, if I have more ingenuity than the other guy, then I should be allowed to build a faster race car?
Well, I mean, I think most people probably feel the same way every generation. Certainly for somebody that wants to be hands-on, it's much different. Like right now, it really caters to the kids in a way. Honestly, the guys who want to spend time, studying data and going over film and going to the simulator and doing iRacing and like all that kind of stuff kind of has replaced the old, kind of testing, hey, let's throw this in the car and see what it feels like. Hey, let's try that shock. And, it's kind of, that's sort of what that's morphed into is computers and simulators and all that kind of stuff. So they share data with everybody, so you can look through data all night long if you want. Every night you can look at every single driver's data for every single lap they run on a racetrack, which is just crazy to me. Like, there used to be kind of secrets. Like when I got to Gibbs, Denny was really good at, he's really good at a lot of tracks, but he was really good at Martinsville and Loudon. And I remember just scouring over all his data to see what he did different. Even the first test I did with Gibbs, we went to Charlotte and we had drastically different driving styles. I mean, drastically different driving styles, and we go the same speed. So like he incorporated some of my stuff in one end and I incorporated some of his stuff in the other end. It made us both faster. But the way it is today, like everybody can look at that. So you just, if you're willing to spend the time and like I said, I think it's a really advantage to the younger guys that are used to, video games and going through, data, computers, all that kind of stuff gives them an advantage. So it's definitely changed through the years.
Speaking of drastically different driving styles, have you noticed that people from Illinois drive like assholes on a racetrack too, or is that just for us?
I don't know where he's from. No, I'm just kidding. Man, I don't even know where to go with that one. I mean, there's no good answer on this one.
Yeah, you can let it be if you have to.
Yeah.
This might be safer then as drastic differences go. Here you are, giant Packer fan, and you're working for Joe freaking Gibbs, who coached the Redskins, the Washington football team, to three Super Bowls. Like that had to come up at some point, like in the interview.
Yeah, well, not really. I'll tell you a couple Gibbs stories in football for me. He loves telling football stories, but the thing about Joe when you work for him for a while is he tells. You want to think he tells a lot of football stories. He tells football stories a lot. It's usually the same 5 stories though. But anyway, so as you guys will remember very well, the Packer game in Seattle, the NFC Championship game. I happened to be in Las Vegas. We were testing the next day, and I was at the sports book. And coach calls me, and I'm looking at it. He calls me at halftime. I'm looking at it like, man, do I answer this or don't I answer this? I'm sure he's not listening to this. This is okay to say. So anyway, so I answer it. And because I don't want to jinx anything with the game, although I'm not really very superstitious. But he's like, man, boys look good. They're going to the Super Bowl. You're going to go. And he's going on and on and on. I'm like, man, coach, it's only halftime. Like, I don't know, man. Unless they're up by like 5 touchdowns. I just never think it's over. But yeah, they're looking good. Hopefully they keep going. And then we all know what happened in that game. So yeah, he didn't call me after the game. And then the best one was, this is funny though. I was the Redskins, the Packers played in Washington for a playoff game a few years back. I don't remember what year it was. Maybe you guys remember. And so Joe was taking a whole bunch of people up there. And coach has this big old airplane. It holds like 12 people. And he calls me and he's like, hey, I had this airplane I was leasing at the time. And he's like, hey, he didn't call me. He had his guy call me. He's like, hey, coach needs to use your airplane on Sunday to bring some people up, to the Redskin game. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, sure. I'll let him use that. That's pretty cool. I bet he's going to ask me to go, since he's calling to use an airplane to go up there. And so I'm sure he's going to ask me to go. That's going to be pretty cool. I was wrong on that. Filled it up with everybody and got up there and took it back. And I was like, I saw him on Monday. I was like, man, how was the game? I mean, besides, I know your team got crushed, but how was the game besides that? Like, oh, it was great. And I was like, yeah, hope everything worked out good with the airplane. I said, it would have been really nice if I could have rode on it, went to the game with you. I think you brought Denny or Kyle or somebody. I don't know. But yeah, I never got the invite.
That is terrific. We're going to spare you. I'm not going to ask you if you think what the Packers should do with Aaron Rodgers, because that's even worse. I think that's more of a powder keg than the Illinois drivers. What's that?
Has anybody covered that? Is there something going on?
No, it made the papers. It was like page 6. If you went in there, it was kind of buried deep. There's a thing. It's not solved. But listen, We usually end the show with a bit of a speed round. I can't think of anything better than to have Matt Kenseth and do a speed round. So take a quick break, and we'll be right back here to wrap things up with Matt Kenseth. Helpful critiques, ideas, great stories, people we should know, the great bar in your town, the fish fry you want to know, the fish boil, anything that you want to reach out to us with. We are happy. We are here. You can be the inputters. We're here to listen.
Shut up and sit down.
Trevor Thomas, John Anderson, back with NASCAR champion and Wisconsin native Matt Kenseth. All right, Matt, it is lightning round, lightning fast. It's really not that fast. These are just some off-the-cuff questions now. Let's talk about home. Let's talk about things that you've probably never been asked for. When's the last time you were back for a Packer or Brewers game?
Oof. That's been a long time. So I threw out the first pitch at the Brewers game, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or something. I'm just guessing. And I didn't really realize that they have 16 people throw out the first pitch. I thought I was kind of special. I'm like, oh, I'm throwing out a first pitch, even though it's a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock or something. I'm like, oh, still kind of cool. Then they're like, bring this person out and throws the first pitch. And the next person, I'm like, well, this isn't really the first pitch anymore. So There wasn't really 16, but there was probably 6 or 7 of us. But I do know this was really cool. I got to go up and meet Bob Uecker, and I've never met him before. And, of course, I'm a huge fan of Major League, and I think he's really funny. And, of course, the voice of the Brewers, forever since I was a kid. And, dude, he was nicest guy in the world. It was the coolest thing ever. He had this huge refrigerator full of beer in there, full of Miller Lite, of course. And as soon as I get in there, he's like, oh, nice to meet you. He starts talking. He's like, let's grab a beer. You want one? And he was only announcing a few innings, he said. And he told me some really cool things. It was really, really, really neat talking to him. So that was definitely a highlight of the night. That's
pretty cool.
What a cool guy. And last Packer game I went to, I don't know. So I know some of the guys that work there. I've known for a while. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, they tend to think that I'm bad luck, that whenever I show up, they lose. This is bad to say too, but I honestly can't remember the last Packer game I've been to. It's been at least a few years.
That takes some guts to kick Matt Kenseth out of Lambeau Field because you think he's bad luck. Get back here. We might need your help this year.
Yeah, love it.
All right, I got one more. So I told you earlier that I grew up in Jefferson County, and I spent a lot of time in Cambridge. And I'll never forget when you built the Matt Kenseth Museum and Teen Store. Yeah. And I learned recently that that's now Cambridge Winery. Have you been to Cambridge Winery?
I have.
Nice.
I have.
Is it weird seeing that?
No, the timing worked out really good. I mean, it was kind of time where I needed to kind of get that shut down. I'm so thankful I was able to build that and afford to build it when we did. I think there's been a ton of fans that enjoyed it. I know I really enjoyed it. Used to come up there to see the fans a few times a year. Man, I had 7 cars up there. I had every piece of racing memorabilia that I've ever had was in there. I had pretty much nothing at home except for Daytona 500. Actually, everything was up there except for the original Winston Cup trophy I had at home, but everything else was up at the store in Cambridge, so everybody could come in and pretty much see my racing career from the start until we ended up, closing that store. So the winery was coming in there, and they were building that community behind there, and they kind of needed a showroom, restaurant type of place, and that place was right on the highway, and it worked out really well for him. So I have been there. It's really nice. The food's great. The wine is good. He's got a nice place there.
Wait, so the museum is not there anymore at all? There's not. Where's all the stuff?
It's upstairs here at my shop at home right now. I'm still trying to get it all organized. It's a slow process. I'm trying to build some shelves, and I got a couple race cars here, and so it's all down here now.
All right, I got just a couple. First off, this is just spurred from what you said. Give me your favorite line of Major League.
Well, probably the same as everybody's. What is it? Just a little outside. Is that what it was?
Just a bit outside. I don't know how they can keep laying off those pitches. As soon as it comes through.
Cambridge, Wisconsin. Since I've watched that too, but that is pretty good.
There you go.
Watch it.
So you're in Cambridge, Wisconsin. If you could go visit, would you rather visit Cambridge, Mass, or Cambridge, England, where the university is?
I guess I would say England because I've never been there.
Yeah, I'm close enough to Cambridge, Mass. That's the right choice. Tell me the best part of winning the Daytona 500.
Oh, best part of winning it. Probably for me, I don't know if this is the best part. I guess it was the best part, most surprising part, whatever. So I have never really liked the camera that much, and I really never have liked attention very much. which is a very odd for the business I ended up being in. So like all the stuff you have to do afterwards, in a way at the time, unfortunately, I never really enjoyed it much because it sort of stressed me out. However, when you look back on it, it was very enjoyable. And it was the most surprising part is just how big that win was. Like I always looked at that like, man, we'll go to Daytona and then we'll get on with the season. And, you know, you win that race and there was like, at the time, there was like almost as much attention as winning a championship. And it was just crazy to me, all the attention and all the cool things you were able to do because of it. So I would say all that. It was really neat winning it and pushing the car into, I don't know what they call it anymore, but Daytona, USA the next day with your team and putting it in there, and it sat there for the year and kind of hanging out with everybody there. And then just really went on a whole week-long media tour, and they got done and they dropped you off in Phoenix on Thursday night. You had one more thing in Phoenix on Thursday night. So that was a crazy part. We left there Monday morning and never went home, and ended up going to New York and going all over the place, San Francisco, and ended up dropping in Phoenix. So it was that was a crazy week. So that was a big surprise for me. And I guess when I look back, I enjoyed it.
Sort of Daytona question. If you got to drive in the 24 hours of Daytona, you and give me two partners that you take with you. Who else would you drive with?
I did it once.
Okay.
So I did it with Kurt Busch and Greg Biffle and Scott Maxwell. So we had four of us. We were not very fast, and the car broke about every 4 hours. So it wasn't really the greatest experience ever. I mean, I was glad I did it, but it was a little frustrating because we always wanted to do the best we can at whatever we're going to do, and I didn't feel like we put forth as good an effort as I wish we would have. But it was fun. So I didn't really answer your question. Man, I don't know. I think it'd be fun. So I got to pick two people. You said probably like Jamie McMurray.
You can get three, yeah.
He's a friend of mine.
You can have Katie if you want. You can bring whoever you want.
No, he's a great road racer, and he's a friend of mine, so I think that would be fun. And then and probably Jimmy, 'cause he's a good buddy of mine too.
Okay, very good.
Pretty good at what he does too.
Yeah.
And the last one I have for you is and sometimes on this show, I like to say we have to have a little segment called Educating Trevor, because he's young and he doesn't know as much as he should. He doesn't seem to want to be a student of history. He just assumes that the world started in 1983 when he was birthed. In terms of great Wisconsin race car drivers, right? I mean, you were on the podium there, but tell me what people in Wisconsin should know about the importance of Alan Kulwicki and Dick Trickle.
So that's a tough one. I don't know much about Alan Kulwicki except for what I've read. I've
won a championship though, at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know all that, but I'm just saying, like, I never watched him race short tracks. He was gone way before I was old enough to really watch races much, even. So I really don't know a ton about him except for what I've read or what I've watched on TV. He won a championship. He's his own owner, like all the stuff everybody knows. And Dick Trickle, I mean, just legendary short track racer. All the stories about him, right? Trickle, the one thing about Trickle that I always enjoyed is he was like the king of one-liners. And please don't ask me any of his one-liners at the moment, because I'm not going to be able to just recall them all one at a time. But he was just like the king of one-liners. He just had all of these, just random things like 8 tires grip better than 4, like when you slide into somebody, just whatever. He just always had these one-liners. And obviously talented, but legend of Trickle is that he was always smoking a cigarette and he was always drinking a beer. Now, I don't think he drank beer until he was done racing for the night, but he would never get any sleep. He always had that. Well, I told you I wasn't going to give you any one-liners or sayings, but his other one is you only need an hour of sleep for every 100 laps you had to race the car. So that was one of his other things he lived by. Yeah, and I think he took that pretty literal. And so just kind of a legend in in that type of way. And then, obviously making it down there at such an old age and doing pretty good at NASCAR. So the one thing I remember about Trickle, I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, is I remember being at Milwaukee. I don't know if you guys remember this race or not. John might, but they just paved it. Trickle was driving that Schneider car, and he's leading the race at Milwaukee. Packed grandstands. I don't know if they had Busch races there every year or not at the time, but it was when that pavement was all coming up right after they paved it. I don't know what year it was. And he was leading the race, and like the fans are going crazy. I mean, it's like, it was just like watching it. And I don't know, there's only a few laps to go. And you had to stay right in a groove because the track was coming apart. And it was all gravel outside the groove. And he's leading, going to win easily. And he messed up and he got out of the groove about 2 feet and got in the gravel and slid out of the groove and lost the race with like 2 or 3 laps to go or something like that. And it was like, I was like devastated. I felt so bad for him. I was like, oh man. So that's my one trickle story I remember.
Matt, as we wrap this up, we talked a little bit earlier about being a Statriot, Wisconsin pride. We have it really thick here. As some of my friends and close family found out that we were going to have you on the show, I started getting some stories that trickled in, and I promised to share this one with you. This is actually really, really cool. Here's what it says.
Off, or is this going to be okay?
What's it?
Is this the time I should sign off, or is this going to
No.
2013.
You're going to love this. You're going to love this. So here's what it says. It says a close friend of mine from Jefferson, actually, had just gotten back from a tour in Iraq in 2003. He got some free military tickets to come back home for a couple weeks. And he got to see you clinch the cup with a bunch of his Marine brothers while he was in Rockingham. And it meant a lot to him. Here's what he said. He said, coming home from overseas and getting to watch a Wisconsin boy win the greatest racing title period, that shit made me proud. I just promised to share that with you. And I think that just goes to say, man, that you have represented Wisconsin well. And we couldn't be more grateful for that. You're one of us. And it's just been awesome to watch a Wisconsin boy that grew up on the short tracks here accomplish what you have, Matt. So thanks a lot.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's funny you mentioned that today. I was thinking about a little bit, I was actually thinking about this podcast and maybe a few other athletes from Wisconsin, that I've been able to meet and stuff. And like, the thing, I wish I would have been better at it. I did the best I could at it, but like, is just take time for every single person. It's just, it's hard and it's really hard to explain, but like the fans mean so much, without the fans and the people and like, especially Wisconsin fans, I just feel like maybe it's because I'm from there, but I just feel like they're so passionate for, their sports and, everything that goes on there. And I feel really fortunate to be from Wisconsin and have all the fan support that I've had through the years. And, I always try to do the best I can to take time to, sign all the autographs and take the pictures and, talk to people and answer requests. But I know that there was a lot of times where it got really, really busy and I didn't do a good enough job at that. And that's probably one thing I regret for my career. Like I said, I did the best I could, but yet there was times where it was like, man, you could have just took that extra, hour and maybe, return a couple letters from the fan mail or whatever it might be. Right. So, but anyway, I do really appreciate all the fans. That's what made the whole journey as special as it was, is all the people that you could meet along the way. Without them, it really wouldn't have been any fun.
Well, I can tell you did a really good job one time. It was March 25th, 2000. I was in Bristol with my family. I was 16 years old, and I met you before that race that year. I had a Johnson Creek Blue Jays sweatshirt on. You said, "Hey, man, back home," and you recognized
Awesome.
It right away.
Oh, good.
Cool. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining us. John, anything else to add?
Nope. I just appreciate it. You've been generous with your time. It's been you are a hell of a driver, but I'm even more impressed that you average 7 minute, 8 second pace for an entire marathon. That to me, if you can ran 307 or 308 or whatever, that I'm like, I'm in. Daytona 500, nice. 307 marathon, better.
Yeah, my goal is 2:59:59, so that's what I'm aiming for at Chicago. It's going to be really hard at my age to reach that. I'm pretty high up there in years, but I'm pretty low on mileage. So I'm going to take training really serious this summer, and hopefully, if I make it through injury free and feel good to start the race, that's kind of my goal. I ran my fastest half in December. I ran like 124, 126 or something, 6:30 pace, and that was a lot faster than I've ever been able to run before. And it was real hilly. It was real cold and nice out though. So that's kind of what my goal is, and me being goal oriented and my whole life racing and having a schedule and doing all that stuff, like it's hard to explain, but mentally it's really good for me to get a target like that marathon and put together a training plan and get up and actually have your week kind of planned out, at least for those couple hours a day that you're going to spend training and a goal to aim for. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. People that don't get it, they're like, how stupid, what a dumb way to spend your time. Like for me, it makes me feel good mentally and physically. And like I said, it's fun to have goals.
If that doesn't work, just hit your ride, hit yourself on the shoulder of one of them 435 a mile canyons and see how far you go before you blow up. That's the other option on that bad boy.
I can't run a 400 at that pace, much less a mile, much less 26.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Hey, anytime you guys want me on, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much. It'd be great.
Shut up and sit down.
Matt Kenseth.
Love
Just
that
one of
dude
us,
right
John.
there. Top of my list.
Honestly,
Right?
he's just a Wisconsin guy. He's one of us.
Totally, right? Like at some point, you're like, you know what? Who would I like to go hang out and have a beer with? Like, I'd go sit and drink beer with my guy. Like, I feel like that night would be just, let's just shoot the crap, and it would be awesome.
He's a goal-oriented guy. We need to set a goal to get him back to Lambeau. That's awesome stuff.
Hey,
Hey,
back on the show, one of the two.
well, or both. How about both? Yeah, that'd be awesome. Hey, really quickly, I want to make sure that everybody knows, subscribe below, right? You're watching this on YouTube. We're grateful for all the viewers. John, check this out. I don't know if I told you this or not. Do you see this?
I have. You sent me a picture of it, but on the wall, it looks even better.
That's incredible. Huge state of Wisconsin by a fan, a viewer of Inside Wisconsin. Couldn't be more grateful. So subscribe below. Like us on all of our social media pages. Check us out on InsideWisconsin.com. Remember, the audio version of the podcast is available on all of the podcast platforms. Wherever you want to go, we would love to spread the good joy of the great state of Wisconsin. John, what else you got going on between now and the next time we chat?
Well, I'm going to leave you. I got stuff every day. I don't know what it is. It might be I have to go, play golf and 3-putt 16 greens and want to quit the game forever, but I can't because I got too many nice shirts. It might be that I have to go out and do some NCAA track and field, which you've got coming up. I think I'm going to have to end up going to the Olympics, but that's a whole different story. But what I thought, I was moved when you were talking about places that you thought people drive too fast. And I'm like, I'm not home enough to come up with something quite that detailed.
Okay.
But I thought I'm going to leave you as my part of my John, Wisconsin. Some people are on Wisconsin, like John, Wisconsin. It's John, Wisconsin. 5 places that I like to drive that are neat to me. I don't know if they mean anything to anybody else, but I think they'll at least certainly be familiar to people. And so that's it. We're going to obey all speed limits. Okay. We're just going to meander. We're not in a hurry. Okay?
Sunday driver.
Yes. So one of my favorites is to get on when I used to be a kid and we would drive over to Iowa where all my relatives. I love being on I-90 where you cross the Mississippi there by Onalaska and the terrain's beautiful and the cliffs and the water. And that's fantastic. So I love that. I also love if we're going west and we're going to go to Minneapolis. And because we had Dick Leinenkugel on, I love to go on Bloody 29, try to maybe hit myself a deer, and then stop in Chippewa Falls and get a liney. So that's a great place.
Love it.
I love Highway 141. We're going straight north. We're going to go by the city of Pound, Wisconsin, which I laugh because a friend of mine one time insisted that he had slept with everybody in the city of Pound, Wisconsin. I don't know how many people were in it, but that was always a great ride because that's how you got to Iron Mountain and you'd ski at Brule or Pine Mountain. And it's always a drive in the winter, but I love going up that road because I always loved to ski. And so that was always fantastic to go up there.
Love it.
You talk about 57 and 42 going to Door County. I'm not a fan of the new road and, anymore, the new road, right? Like when you go 43 to Milwaukee to Green Bay, I still think of that as the new road, even though it's been open for whatever it is, right? 40 freaking years, but it's still going 41. But I love 57 to 42, but I want to go right through Sturgeon Bay and go over the Steel Bridge, the Sturgeon Bay Bridge, right? I get the new one's nice and all that. I'm not in for that. I love the Steel Bridge. So that
old one's still there.
Yeah, so that's on my list. And then my favorite stretch of road in all of Wisconsin, because a lot of times getting into Green Bay, the travel schedule is not great. So I end up in Milwaukee. I have a daughter in Milwaukee I love to go see when I can. My favorite stretch of road is then coming up the Tri-State Tollway on 94 and crossing the border and see that Wisconsin sign, which is only slightly bigger than the one you have tacked on your wall. And you're right there, and I see the Mars Cheese Castle, and I think, I'm home.
Amen.
And that's my favorite stretch of road in Wisconsin. Right there, cross the border, leave the fibs behind. I'm into God's country, and I'm headed my way. And if I have to, I might stop at the adult store. Usually I don't need anything, but it's always right there. That's my favorite stretch of road in the whole state.
Outstanding.
Let's call it a show, shall we, bud?
We shall, man. It was great to see you. Until next time, as you were, Wisconsin.
Shut up and sit down.